Hello from tropical Germany. So really hot here. So 1 month is over. And we have lots of questions. So let's start with the very first question. And this is actually the last, but I forgot to gather it. And this is from Robert Herschke. And he asked me something interesting. Will the open source Swift beat the power of Java in sector? What's your opinion? So first, I think Swift is really interesting, but the question is why Java EE is interesting at all. And I would say it's not about the language, at least not in my case, or it seems like also in case of my clients or customers. It is what I think is unbeatable in Java EE is the fact that you basically you can download one API, one platform, and you have whatever you need. Everything is in one place, and then you can choose the application server. So you don't have to think about the individual frameworks first. So you can concentrate on the business logic. And regardless how compelling Swift is going to be, I would say what Swift will need is something like a set of usable APIs, well bundled together in a usable way. So installation should be very easy. And what would be also nice if you would get support from multiple vendors at the same time. Then we would compete with Java EE. So I would hope it would be nice if Swift 2 will get some popularity. I really like it, but I think we cannot compare language with a platform, and so therefore I don't think it will beat Java EE. Having that said, lots of new projects are starting with Java EE, and what we were able to do is to set up everything in half a day, and we've implemented some use cases in a half a day without even thinking about the frameworks and the possible combinations. So and the next question from Robert is the first one is he would like to have a REST API as a front of stateful business logic, and is it possible with Jax-Rs? And the answer is, of course, Jax-Rs is just a servlet. So and HTTP session should work, and therefore also session scoped. And the question is it a good idea or not? And yeah, from the if you can avoid it, right? So stateless APIs are always better, but in case you need the state, so this is convenient, to rely on the state, then you can absolutely do it. And let's see whether I will be able to find it. I think it was Adam Bean one line and HTTP. Let's see whether I will find it. And this is the only thing I forgot to look up, and I think it was Cookie Manager. You need a Cookie Manager. It's an old post. I think it's this. Very old one, 4 years old. So what this is a Jax-Rs client, and what it does is it just sends all the cookies back, and all the cookies also means this JSession ID. So it makes actually whatever is HTTP based also Jax-Rs stateful, and actually tested it with Jax-Rs back then. Since then, never again. But then I tested it with Jax-Rs and even with Hessian. So with this line of code, which belongs to JDK, you can even make whatever you like, HTTP based stateful. And this is the Jax-Rs client. If you would like, to hit this from the browser, like from AngularJS, the REST API, you will also have to send back and forth the cookie with the content. I think is JSession ID. This is the standard. So nice question. So then back to the regular questions, and someone. Real TV. This is a recursion. So I see, myself on Real TV is getting better and better. Hey, Robert. Hello to your TV. And I think since the last show we are sending in full HD. So I'm really curious about the quality. So ping me. I'm really curious about the quality, and I cannot test it myself. So first question. Do you see JavaScript frameworks in your work yet? Do you see MVVM becoming popular? So still, I would say 80% of my work is enterprise, and also is enterprise. We use in a lot of project JavaScript, mostly Angular or just nothing, just of course something homegrown because it's enterprise. But first we should, I think, clarify what MVVM is, Model View View Model. It is actually a Microsoft term, and it's the same meaning as MVP, Model View Presenter. And this Model View Presenter is like, it was retired by Martin Fowler. But what the idea is, you get a view which is dumb, thin, and no logic. Then you get a view model, which is actually a presenter or controller, and the presenter usually provides data binding services, so the view can bind to the data of the controller, so the controller exposes some variables to the view, and the model is a domain model. So if you think about Angular, so so what I said so far is the following: we have the view, and the view binds to a presenter and or view model. We said this is model view model, and this exposes view specific stuff here, and this talks to a model usually without data binding and just by invoking the model, and this is like the translator. And why it's interesting, first the view is easier to write and test. So in the case of Angular, it's just plain HTML, and in Angular has two-way binding, and model in the case of Angular would be like a service or a singleton or factory, are different names for this. And the controller is just like a translator, so it should just contain presentation logic, disabling fields, enabling fields, but no business logic. And the question is it popular? Yes. In most projects, Angular is used. I would also say Angular is Model View Model Architecture, or MVP. And this is the reasons because I'm spent all my time in Java and Java 8 projects, actually Java 8 projects, and if there's clients, just plain Java. And Java developers just like Angular, and Microsoft developers would rather prefer Knockout.js, I would say, is also an MVVM framework. So Knockout.js is called. Knockout.js should be. This is the framework, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to, the first time, I will just show notes. Why not, right? So Knockout.js, and this is also that they have some examples, and this is what the Microsoft guys prefer. And yeah, this is the Knockout.js, and the Ruby and Rails guys prefer Ember. So there are different flavors of this, but I absolutely see this in production. And of course, the problem is it changes all 2 months. You get another framework. So. So let's go back to to my page, and so the point number 2. Let's see whether we got some questions. No questions. Do you wait for more audience? Hopefully not. I have shown no idea how many are live, but usually after the show, usually it's around 100 viewers live, which is actually not that bad. So. Everything clear. Robert seems to be satisfied. Everyone else as well. So, second, you mentioned in earlier video the BC structure, and the question says, is it this? No, it is actually several questions. I'll go through this. But there are many concerns which doesn't really fit in the structure, sort of cross-concern. Because of this, I have a question. Where to put following concerns? Resource locator for REST sub-resources for abstract resources. So I don't use resource locators usually. For instance, I show you my project I worked last week on. It was stateful. It's like state machine which exposes SCXML. And if you go here, I have lots of resources. For instance, state machines resource is the main resource, and it exposes a sub-resource state machine resource, and they are in both package because they belong together. I don't have nothing abstract here, and I don't need nothing abstract because I use the resource context to inject the Jax-Rs specific part. And what I do, it is not not elegant, but works well. I inject whatever is needed here, all the boundaries from here, and the boundaries is just there's a specific reason for this. The boundaries remain here. So I inject the boundaries, whatever is needed in the main resource, and I propagate them via constructor. Here you see this in the sub resource. It's not elegant, of course. Some developers prefer to use resource locator for this here. You could do this. I think this is easier. And this is so. Let's say I would have resource locator, and he asked me where to put it, which is actually a very good question, right? And the resource locator. So if you go back to the structure, cannot belong to the machine. Stateful. By the way, machine is the business component, so it cannot be in the machine. I would put it first on the stateful level, so not machine level, stateful level. So there would be resource locator for all components. So of course you get just a resource locator, and hopefully you got something else which deals with location. Then you can provide something like naming services component or location service, but not util, of course. So and if there's just one, just keep it on the stateful level. And stateful is the application name, and machine is the component level. You don't have to create a component for each class. And so I don't usually have resource locator, but date-util mail service is more interesting. For instance, a mail service, I think you get at least two classes. One Pojo which deals with Gmail or whatever, and probably something which exposes the mail service. Then you get a component which calls mailing or messaging or whatever. Date-util, I will put in a component calendar. I hope it will be more than just one class. If it's just one class, I will put it in the root. Abstract entity, hopefully you don't need them. So I really don't think you get the, you really need abstract entity. Jax-Rs config is a good one. Where I put the config, here you see. My Jax-Rs configuration, by the way, you can look it up on the GitHub page. On my GitHub page, let's go to github.com admbean and see whether we'll find the stateful. Repositories and stateful. And just put it to the show notes, stateful, so you can look it up after the show. Just clone it. This is exactly what I have on my machine. And as you can see, this Jax-Rs configuration, and it's on top level because it does not belong to any of the components. And this structure looks good for me and works good for me. And I got lots of feedback from developers. They also like it because it's simple. But sometimes, what I thought about it several times, if you get a lot of classes which can be shared between, for instance, presentation and backend, probably is a good idea to introduce another layer. So like, infrastructure or whatever, because what we are now in the fortunate case that the following, we are in the business layer, and the business layer comprises component. So business component, and what I said right now, we can share putting everything here. But what if we get, for instance, JSF, and also JSF has some folders, and you would like to share between both? So still, you can just access it here. So this would be my preferred way. But as I already thought about this in some projects, but we never did it. It could be also interesting to have an infrastructure layer and put, let's say you have something esoteric like, I don't know, some specific algorithms or whatever. So, but algorithms can be still put in business component. Then you could create a dedicated layer, not a component layer, to keep the stuff shared to all layers, like integration, business, presentation. I never did it in the projects, but I actually forgot. In one project, it was really on the edge, so we thought about creating this. I hope the answer is clear. So what it means: always search for business names, for domain names, and try to avoid meaningless stuff like naming like util, common, platform, or whatever. So this is the basic idea. tracing with logger exposer. So, for instance, so tracing with logger exposer would be a component tracing, a logger exposer, and probably an belonging interceptor. So you could, I would just create a component with the name tracing, and a boundary or control logger exposer. This is, I think, not a sharp distinction. Probably a boundary fits better. If you would like to expose it to everyone and just for the internal control. Validation controller, like why not know audits, validation, or whatever? So just take the names. Okay. Is it okay to use DTOs in a REST method for request response payload? The question is, of course, and what is the motivation? And I think the motivation is there is the possibility to version the interface DTO independently from the domain objects. I would say, okay, this would be one reason, but then I would like to see it. So I would say I would try to make a code review of a project after 1 year, and if there are no distinct version between DTOs and the domain objects, I would delete the DTOs. But if you manage to keep several versions of the DTOs and decouple them really from the domain objects, and I would see different structure. So then there's a clearly beneficial to have dedicated DTOs. So again, DTOs are okay if the DTOs are different to the entities. Just having DTOs and hoping that one day you could decouple, I think, is not good enough. And having that said, what's also given in Java 7 is JSON objects. Is JSON-P is just the whole specification is a nice DTOs. So if you expose your domain objects with data transfer objects, you could use JSON, and JSON is such a data transfer object. So you don't need to create your own. So in my projects, I try to use DTOs whenever possible, and I think even, let's say, I actually don't know, in the stateful example, and let's see to the, we have to go here, attachments resource, and what we are doing. You see, I'm working with JSON object, so I'm sending back JSON objects here, and the attachment manager creates from whatever statement machine get serializes and deserializes, creates this is just a copy, but it creates JSON objects, and the whole communication with the outside world is JSON object based, and therefore I have in the stateful DTOs, but I didn't create them, I just used the JSON specification. So conceptually I have the decoupling. So a very good question, and a really nice one. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a third year studying computer science. And at the moment, I'm creating some Java apps, and more specifically in Android. And he asked me, so I'm asking the Java guru. Really, I'm not a Java guru. If I should change to C#. So what's fact? C# is probably it is more elegant than Java, I would say. Elegant, I don't like the look and feel, but there's more features in Java, it's more powerful. The question is it that comparing? So I think there was already an comment, a good one. So the best programming language is the one people will pay you lots of money to use. So this is there is something true with this. So the question is, will you get in sufficient projects with C#, or what would be more interesting? Working for C# ecosystem or for Java? And my perception is right now that there are two very popular languages. I would say JavaScript and HTML5 like languages, and then Java or JVM languages. And in my world, I just use the Java programming language everywhere. And at conferences, at least, you will hear a lot about, Clojure, Scala, Groovy, and all the cool stuff. And my projects are just Java 8 mostly. So, the next, how annotations are useful, explain view of them. And annotations the same as attributes, I think, in C#. And why annotations are useful? Because you can put additional information on attributes, parameters, methods, constructors, and all language constructs. And this basically is, but usually you will find a tool like persistence mapper, Jax-Rs, RESTful Web Services, or UI layout or whatever. And these tools are able to read the annotations. So the annotations, as the name says, the additional information from the bytecode and do something with it. There's the whole Java E is based on annotations. And why they are great? Because there's a union between the object and the metadata. So you don't have to look in two places. Whatever you need is on the class. This is why I really like annotations. And annotations don't have any behavior. It's like type-safe Javadoc, I would say. The type safety is a great thing because we get code completion, or from Microsoft world is called IntelliSense. So control space, and you get the auto completion because the structure is given by the annotations. So look at my screencasts in my YouTube channel. I use, I think, annotations in all my work. Is the thing with the @ okay, and I hope, let's say, whether we have any questions. No questions, probably too warm, and nothing in the chat. So let's go ahead with the next one. So, have long been a fan of JDO and welcome JPA. So, using as just very easy to persist object is almost an answer, right, to the question from before. And there are few examples to be found about how to persist third-party objects, assuming said objects provide getters and setters, they will not change. And I'm thinking that using a wrapper around the object would be one way to go, but I would like to hear how you approach this. An example would be great too, Eddie. Because examples are always better than talking, so I created one, and this is called JPA ORMM. So it works, created today. So one entity workshop, without even getters and setters, plain entity. There is no annotations, nothing. And by the way, annotation would look like this, but this is exactly what we don't like to have. So this would be an annotation, but we don't like the annotation here. So, and then this is a Maven project. It comes with Eclipse link dependency, JUnit, and Derby for test. And rules is just my project, which just simplifies obtaining the entity manager is very simplistic. So you can forget it here for this example. And let's go to the test. So, and I can run the test. And what I do in the test, I merge the workshop. So I will run the test here. And you see it's green. So it works. So surprisingly, I was able to store the workshop in the entity manager. The question is why it worked. And the solution of the mystery is the following. So I have persistence XML, and this persistence is even empty. So there are exclude unlisted classes true, but there is no class listed. But it points to orm.xml, and this orm.xml describes the metadata of whatever object you like. So what you can do with JPA from day one, you can create an ORM file and describe all the metadata here. And this metadata will describe the entity, and you see this points to the workshop, and this is sufficient to persist whatever object you like. You don't even need getters and setters. I don't like ORM XML because I prefer annotations, but I got your point. Sometimes you don't have the source code, you have the bytecode. I would like to persist objects. Then probably ORM XML would be the right way to go. Why probably? Because maintaining both in two places is always not as productive as putting annotation on the class. Okay. I hope the question is answered, and I hope the Eddie is super happy with JPA. So which CDI annotations are available in JSP? I want to use conversation scoped to design without form. I think everything. So why? So let's try to create a very simple, let's do the project from archetype. Airhacks. Hey, what's wrong? Oh, It took a second. Java 7 Essential is a good one, and say JSP project. So what you can do in JSP is the following. I will just create this, and then I can create, let's create the bins XML first. So to enable annotation everywhere, all. Then I would like to create a JSP file and call that index. And then I should be able to create a Java class. And this Java class I will call shopping cart in com airhacks. And the shopping cart could be session scoped. Yes, and named. This is important, is named. And I could say here string get content. And what we would like to shop is, let's say, cooling. So we would like to have some cooling. And now what you should be able to do the following. I think this is $. Let's do this. Index dot, I have to save it first. What was a shopping cart? Sorry. Shopping cart dot content. Wait a second. Why I'm confused? Because it's, I think, shopping cart get content. Implement serializable. And then with $, you should use the $. I think it's something like shopping cart get content. The problem is you are not allowed in JSPs of doing this, and what I of course completely forgot is that shopping cart dot get content. Okay, and now it should already work. No. So, and in JSF is the hash, in JSP is the $. This is the only difference. And this should also work equally well in a scriptlet right now. And you could use the, and now run it. And let's take the Payara, the current one. It's a supported glassfish. Should work also on Whiteflower, whatever you have. And this is not Java 7 stuff, it's a pretty old actually. So I boot the full environment and see what happens. So as you can see, I got something back. Now we will have to implement some tests with the state. You only see that works. But what you should do as a homework, create 2 browser windows and try and keep some state to see whether it works. Conversation scope should also work, but you will have to open and close the conversation. Request scope will always work, and application scope as well. So hope the question is answered. So thank you for 8 Indus. Where would you put interceptors cross-cutting? It's actually, I hope you don't have just interceptor. Usually you have interceptor is just, you know, the thin layer around the logic, and the logic is injected from somewhere else. And these 2 classes, I will try to find a minifunc name and put the 2 classes interceptor plus, for instance, a controller boundary in the meaningful package, like monitoring, audits, performance management, or whatever, caching, whatever you would like to build. And another good one is the EJB and GSF. So I would say interceptor is nothing special for me. It just is used by other components. And whether I inject something or I say, you know, interceptors and let's do it by the application server, I actually don't care. A more interesting stuff is EJB and JSF. So where to put JSF? The JSF components I would put in presentation package, not in the business package. So could you please show how to unit test a boundary utilizing other stateless and inject objects? And whether I would use Achillean. I bet I recorded such a video already, so I would just do searches in the YouTube channel, because it's a very common question. I did it several times. I would like to skip it. But as a hint, you don't use Achillean to test the boundaries and controls. Whether you are using stateless or CDI, it does not actually matter. What I would do, I would create a JUnit test with Mockito and just mock out the controls. And I always get, yeah, but it's not always possible, but it actually is. So what if you're interested in testing, so this is a shameless plug, workshops, Adam Bean. Yes, there is in July the 23rd continuous Java EE 7 testing deployment and code quality. So the whole day, I will challenge you to show me an example where it does not work sufficiently well or productive or whatever, and we implement and test and deploy and measure the quality of the applications using SonarQube, Sonar Source, so or Sonar. So if you're interested in this, come here. And what I also plan to do in one point of time, record an online course with just testing. Could be interesting for you. Or just go to my YouTube channel. YouTube. Yeah. Go to YouTube channel, search for Adam Bean, and I bet you will find a screencast. If not, I will record one just for you. But now I would like to skip it because I did it already several times. Is there a way to have dynamic finders in JPA like Rails or Rails? Kind of. So what you could do is you could implement an interface, and then with dynamic proxy learn from the signature of the methods and create SQL queries on the fly. So this works. What also works in Java 7, you can register named queries on the fly. But what's impossible to create queries from public methods on entities, because you would need at least an AOP framework or something like this. It's not possible with Java syntax and plain Java 8. You would need something additional. I mean, you could create a Java agent or something, but this is, has nothing to do with the language anymore. But with interceptors, it would work. Interfaces, it would work out of the box. Just create an interceptor, an interface with dynamic proxy. So, what's your reaction to the post from Jürgen Höller about Java 7 and production? So I got lots of pings about this. Happy second birthday, Java 7, how it's going in production. And Jürgen Höller is one of the famous Spring developers, and by the way, a very nice guy, and know him personally. And he is writing here that not lots of commercial Java 7 servers support not of commercial application servers support Java 7, and he is absolutely right. It was also my complaint, so I gave the feedback several times to Red Hat. Why, for instance, not impossible to buy just no support for Whitefly? It would be great if I would just pay, if you like start with Whitefly, then go to Red Hat and say, now I would like pay you, just please support my Whitefly version. This was, for instance, possible for Glassfish, which was great back then because you don't need, you didn't have two Glassfishes. In one point of time, there was a commercial one, but this was almost identical to the open source one. And you could go to Sun and say, okay, I start with the open source, and then you can buy support by Sun. The same true is now for Payara. So you can start with open source Glassfish, then go to Payara guys and say, okay, I would like to buy support, and you get it. But from IBM, also works, but just with Web Liberty profile. So the Web Liberty profile from IBM has Java EE 7 support. So you can you get it from IBM for Web Liberty profile, and WebLogic is a little bit slow. And the question is why it is the case. So let's think about this. What could be behind, right? So why the vendors are slow with the adoption, and there could be different reasons. So I don't think the reason is they are slow because they would like to give Spring more business opportunities. I think one reason is most of the clients don't like to move fast. So this was also the problem with Java, as I remember, Java SE. I think one point of time Oracle promised faster pace, and the clients or customers were against that. At least this is what I heard or understood on Java 1. So the next thing could be the commercial application servers is actually fairly old, and what they have a huge code base, and I think it is not that simple, just to implement Java 7 with JBatch, whatever, for the current WebLogic or for the huge WebSphere. This is probably the reason why IBM comes with the WebSphere Liberty profile with something more modular, I would say, and fast, because they can move faster than with the huge one. I can imagine this is one of the reasons. I have, of course, no idea. And Oracle had something like this with the Glassfish, but they lost interest for unknown reasons. So, but with WebLogic, I think it's harder to implement Java 7 than, for instance, for Tommy or for Whitefly. And why Red Hat is not doing this, I can just imagine that what Red Hat's strategy is probably similar to IBM's. They try to upgrade the whole platform, not only the application server. It takes, of course, a lot of time, to implement the IDE support, the application server, the cloud, and whatever. It is then harder than create just, the Payara, for instance, just Glassfish. So Jürgen is effectively right, but funny enough, it doesn't affect my projects at all. In all my projects right now, we are using Glassfish, Payara, lots of Whitefly. So many of the clients migrated to Whitefly. Many also migrated to Payara. And I see more and more interest in W Liberty profile. This is with which servers the project are starting. This is what I see in my case. And of course, there are clients who use WebLogic or the big WebSphere, but they use it already for years. I think no one starts a fresh project with the huge application servers like WebLogic or IBM WebSphere. Usually they use WebLogic or WebSphere because they have the whole infrastructure in place, or they have Oracle products in place or IBM products. So the application server is just like, I would say, operating system. Yeah, and the open source application server are more like, I would say, thin containers to run the business logic. So the focus is a little bit different. So I have to say, I like the post. It's just, there was the conclusion is a little bit strange. Where was it? I don't know, there's just a few sentences which are a little bit dangerous, but funny enough, what I did, I created similar posts a few years ago. So if you go to my post, the end of commercial Java E5 application servers in 2007, and my point was they were supported, but the larger the application server, the more meaningless the support, because then they don't even understood you. So this is interesting, and post similar to Jürgen's even, and this comes over and over again. So this is a post from about Java 6 from Java 1 in 2010. And the response from Arthur, who is actually Arthur? I don't know. And still only 2 certified pretty niche servers, no big players, almost 1 year after release, enough said. So what Arthur mentions with this is, okay, Java 6 is dead because there are no servers, which is right now we have, 15 or something Java 6 certified servers. And I bet with you, if Java 8 come out, I get similar comment, because I get these comments every 3 years. So like, Java 8 is out, but there is no server which supports it, so forget it, it will die. So, but yeah, this is how it is. Okay, let's see what happens here. Someone found, Anton Varela found a projects with dynamic finders, but what would be interesting to look at this, I will put it to show notes. It's really interesting what the dependencies of the projects are. I see integrates with Project Lombok. So what it actually means, you will need bytecode manipulation to achieve this. This is my point. It does not work out of the box. With interfaces, it would work out of the box. But thank you very much, and I will put it to show notes. And I try to publish the show notes on YouTube. So thank you. So. Next one. How to set up MySQL SSL with the certificate. There should be actually no difference. So I didn't look at this specifically because the application server just uses the connection, the underlying driver, and the data source just pulls the connection. So usually the application server has nothing to do with the MySQL driver. So I would look up at the MySQL documentation how to create JDBC connection using SSL. And if you don't know this, it should be fairly easy to use data source or pulled connection or whatever application server you like. But what you will get is the SSL's connection for the resource user, of course. It's not like, each web user will get a dedicated MySQL connection. So the question is, the question number 12, I have a question related to cooperation with JavaScript in one war. I would like to make a simple app using AngularJS, fine, but the structure was not really matched to the Maven project, so I found that I can use. So first, why not? So recently we created an Angular application in war, and the Angular files were in source main web app. I cannot show you because it's a commercial project, and we didn't use the Yo Maven plugin. But I think what Sebastian would like to do is to use Maven to build the whole JavaScript stuff, and this is what we didn't followed so far. So we tried with Gradle and Maven, and looks nice, but I think is really in one point of time you should use the native NPM or node support and use command line, then a shell script or batch file. And what we do done on CI, continuous integration in Jenkins, we run Jenkins invokes the shell script over and over again, and it builds the war. And the question is, why war then? Because sometimes we use, for instance, JSPs for templating or something like this. So this is why we need war. Otherwise, you don't need war if you just have AngularJS. And in one project, we use JSPs or servlets to, for instance, to find out in which stage we are. And this was the reason why we needed war, because we manipulated the JavaScript files, the services from Angular. So now on the question number 13, how to test microservices. And the answer is it shouldn't make any difference, because in microservices you have one control talking to another boundary probably, and what you usually will do is to encapsulate this a little bit. Probably you will get a POJO which wraps a Jax-Rs client which talks to another server, and you can just mock out the POJO, and then you shouldn't care about the Jax-Rs communication. In my current projects, one of my current projects we are more interested on the data which goes back and forth, and we would like to, and the other system is really hard to handle. So what we will probably do is to create something like a proxy data recorder or an emulator of the system, just for integration test purposes and performance test purposes. But for a usual unit test, you should just mock out altogether not the Jax-Rs client, but the boundary or controls which wraps the Jax-Rs client. So is it possible to build web application MVC Ozark with Java 7? Is it enough matured currently for large-scale web application? Yes. The question is when it goes to production, and if you test a lot, you could use it. But if you would like to be bulletproof, VRaptor, I think, this already used in production, and it already works on Java 7, and this is already very well documented. So put on the show notes. So if you're interested in MVC, look at VRaptor. You can use it in production, or if you have a little bit more time, just use Ozark, test it a bit, and give it feedback to community. And Ozark is based on Jersey. So go to Jersey MVC, and you should find the MVC templates from Jersey. So and this is also used in some projects, and you could use this because I would say lots of ideas from this are leveraged in the MVC specs. So I will put also this in the show notes. Okay. Hopefully the question is answered. By the way, let's look at the question. No question, and the chat is lazy as always. So nothing going on in the chat. So shame on you, but I think Twitter is somehow eager. So in JPA-based app, I'm facing some problem in merge. I think the problem is optimistic lock exceptions. Because it's transaction-related project problem, it can be only optimistic lock exception. To overcome this problem, I'm using create a native query update into without the concurrency problem, I think. And is it recommend to do this? And I would say usually no, because if you write your own native query, you will overwrite the data and you could get lost updates. So if you know what you are doing and you say nothing can go stale or inconsistent, then you can do this. But if you are not very sure, you should rather handle this, the collision, the optimistic lock exception with merge. And how you can handle this is exactly the same how you handle merge conflicts in Subversion or Git or Mercurial. You should the first will win, the last will win, or you have to merge. Okay. What is the best practice for large-scale financial application for key generation? And the question is not how big the application is, rather than what are your requirements. If you're creating lots of JPA entities, sequence is nice, and what JPA is able to do is able to check out, batches of keys. So you will hit the sequence only once are, let's say, each 50K keys, which is very, very fast. The problem is, of course, if the server dies, you get holes. So you get entity, 10K, and then ID 10K, and the next entity is going to be, I don't know, 60K, and this is what many departments don't like, business departments, because they would like, to do as whole a history without a hole. In some project we even use UID. It also works super nice. The problem with UID is it's slow to generate, and it is too long. If you would like to show invoice number as a UID, it is not usable for this purpose. And how to audit in JPA? Question number 4. Look at entity listeners. So this is like aspects for entities, very easy to use. So the question number 15, could you suggest how to organize CI process with Jenkins and Docker? I have a set of Java apps, and for each of them I configure Docker. So I want to use Jenkins to run integration tests and then rebuild image and rerun container for each application. So what I did, and it worked well for me, I think there are still no best practices because it's too new, but I can tell you what I did. And this is in the very beginning, I would say 1.5 years ago. It was just my first idea, and I just tried that, and it worked good enough. So, in my case, it looks like this. So there is a Docker, and in the Docker, on the Docker host, everything runs. So we have the containers. Several containers, my blog, a database, and statistics, and one of this container is the Jenkins CI. And what I install on this Docker image, the Docker CLI. And by the way, you don't have to use the Docker CLI. You can use plain REST and, for instance, NAS1, because a tool like Watchdog, it's just a website I created, communicates with Docker directly using JSON. The same could be used directly here. So that the Docker actually communicates, the Jenkins communicates with the Docker host and is able to run, build, and whatever like outside this container. So what I did, I shipped this image first, then was able, this image was like a bootstrap, and this image is able not only to create all the images, it's also able to start all the images in the right order. So I just misused or used Jenkins as the automated tool, and this is what I did. This was the simplest possible thing, and it even didn't have to be, in a container. But the idea is, why not? Why not to treat, Jenkins in the same way? It could just run on the host equally well and communicate directly with the Docker. The only problem was to find out the IP address, because there is no linking. There was like, you don't like to talk to Docker with the other one. You would like to try to talk to the host directly, but there was a solution, so you can find out what is actually the IP address of the host. So you in my case, is even a dedicated IP address. So it just worked. I hope the question is answered. Oh, get something on Twitter. Oh, please don't forget answer BCE related question 18 and 19. See the gist. Yeah, I will do this. Oh, could you provide an example how to send text to cell phone from a web application? Funny enough, I also thought about the topic, I don't know, 15 years ago. I thought it's like, SMS is like mail something, but no, it's a service from the provider and you will have to buy something. But there is a nice API, it's called Twilio. This is what I prepared this. And if you go to Twilio, there is a nice REST API, and using this REST API, you would be able to send, not only to send SMS messages, you can send SMS or MMS, make a call. If you go to this, you will see it is actually very simple to send. And what you just need is Jax-Rs, and then you can use, for instance, Porcupine if you would like to spam a lots of users. But yeah, this is how it will look like with Twilio. You have to subscribe. This is a commercial service, but this is one possibility. So the answer is it really depends which provider are you using. Okay. When you use BCEs and GSF, where you place your backing beans, the backing beans I place in GSF, in presentation package, and they are not organized according to the boundary control entity pattern, because usually there's not like a silo, unfortunately. So I would also like to draw this. So as said, I have the business layer and the presentation layer. And the presentation layer we only need for server-side frameworks, like for instance JSF. So, and the backing beans here are talking to the boundaries here. But here we have a clear organization using the BCE, so we have the components. And here, what I try to do, we have different structure. In single page app is probably a package, a package per view. If per panel or view, if there's a wizard, so what we have a package per page or something like this, but this is not the same structure. So I put the backing beans in the presentation root folder first, and then wait until we get something visual and try to find the names for the concepts, and then we create a package per concept, and we put the backing beans there. But there is usually no relation between the backing beans in the folders on the presentation layer with the boundaries and controls from the backend, from the boundary. Okay, cool. This was, and just according to Twitter, we just go to the questions 18 and 19, hopefully. So we pick everything here. So these are the two. Using BCE ECB, I can group my business logic in components. Yes. Sometimes struggling to find the right place to put an entity that is used by more than one component. I assume you are writing a workshop. Where would you like put the order entity that is used by both components, place order and shipment info in place order? Because order is the logical. There's just in ordering system is the order. And even if all the components are using the entity, I think the home of the order entity is in the place order. It just sounds logical to me. Common never. And why not? I think it is better to create something like this, and this could end up in endless discussion. So we have, let's say, an order and shipment or shipping. And shipping needs the order. So this is, I think, his problem. So of course, it would be nice if the components would be independent, but I actually don't care about this. But if you put this in common package, order, and the package would be common, then both components point to this, which is not that bad. The problem is you will put probably everything else to the common component as well. So you will end up having here, it would look like, go-to logic. So it's just everyone knows everyone, and from the outside looks nice, and inside it looks like hell. So I think why I prefer, what is the reasoning behind? So I would put the entity to the order package because it's easier to find. So in if 2 years someone will ask, the order entity needs additional field, where you will search for this entity, and I will start with the order, not in the common. So this is actually the reasoning behind. Hope it's clear. Okay, very good. How would you design an outbound boundary? My approach would be to create a separate component having at least boundary and then control. The control is required to be used by other components. The boundary should not be used directly as one comes. I think outbound means if I would write to the boundary, it will communicate with other components, like integration logic. So two answers to this. By the way, every boundary is an outbound, because if you talk to the database, or GMS is also outbound. But what we sometimes do, just to give you another example, let's say we have a legacy system here, which is hard to communicate. So it's a legacy database or whatever. So we have lots of nice business components on this level. This is ordering and shipment, and we like to talk to the system. So what we can do, we can create a component, and this component, both components are talking to this one. But the interesting point is there is no boundary. It's just control. Why not boundary? Because no one from outside of the layer is able to use the functionality. So far, the convention was components have boundary if the services or API is visible from outside the layer, and they just have control if the logic is just to be shared between components. So we get here something like an integration component or business package or something, which doesn't have the boundary, so it doesn't have to communicate with the outside world, but the could have several controls or even facade controls, so you can stack the controls. Control can talk to other controls here, and you can use entities to encapsulate the system. This would be something like an outbound boundary or integration component. So we are done with the question, and the last question from Twitter: is it a good idea to use JSF to develop mobile web applications? Why not? So if you're building responsive pages, responsive means you have clear logical structure, and you are loading different CSS style sheets depending on capabilities of the device. You can do it with JSF, and for instance with HTML5 friendly markup. So you can use JSF. You can take whatever HTML page you like and transform it to a JSF. You should be a little bit more careful if you're using components like prime faces, rich faces, whatever. Then you will have to first test the components whether they fulfill the requirements. So if they run, for instance, on Apple Watch or on Garmin Watch or whatever, and how it looks like. So this is this I would do, but you can use JSF or whatever. So it's not that bad. It's actually very productive if used in reasonable way. So I think we are done with the summer edition. So thank you for watching, and see you at our upcoming conferences, workshops in Munich, July. I think next week even. I think next week is the Munich Airport workshop. So it's already, I think, over 20 attendees per day. And the next one is going to be in December. And between both, I'm at Java 1, and Java 1 will get a Birds of Feather session, hopefully in Moscone Center. It was like the very old Java 1. and I try, to organize some beer, and I will gather some most popular questions from here, or you can also suggest questions, and I will record the session somehow and publish after the show, and probably I will be able to stream it live. So come to the BOF. I will announce it separately. So thank you for watching, and subscribe to the airhacks news if you would like to be notified about such activities, and see you next month. Bye.